On June 1, 1959, a sheriff's deputy in Duval County, Florida, visited the home of Mr. Joseph Walker to serve him with a warrant for delinquent dog taxes. When he knocked on the door and received no answer, he walked around the side of the house and peered through an open window. What he saw made him call for backup. He had found the bodies of 4 people lying on the floor, all of them fatally shot. The case would go on to attract national attention, with some believing that the crime was committed by a pair of ruthless killers, while others thought it was the work of a madman. To this day, the murders remain unsolved, and there are more questions than answers. So let's take a look at the case of the Walkers, starting with who they were and what was known about their deaths. The Walker family consisted of Joseph Walker, his wife Mary, and their 2 sons, 14-year-old John and 9-year-old Joseph Jr. They lived in a small house on the outskirts of Jacksonville. Joseph Walker was an electrician and a World War II veteran who suffered from severe asthma. He and Mary had been married for 23 years, and despite having 2 teenage boys, they didn't allow any pets in the house because of Joseph's asthma. In the week leading up to June, a number of strange things happened around town. On May, a man fitting the description of Joseph Walker was seen at a local supermarket, but he looked confused and disoriented, which was out of character. Then on May 26th, a woman reported seeing a boy who she believed was Joseph Walker Jr. walking along a road near the house. The boy was never seen again. Then there were the power outages. On May 28th, the electricity went out in the Walker family home. An investigation revealed that someone had cut the wires connected to the house, and the power company had to repair the damage before power could be restored. But this wasn't an isolated incident. The power to several homes in the area had been cut that same day, and on May 29th, the power to the Walker's neighbors, the Deansmore family, went out too. Their connection hadn't been cut, however, and the cause of the outage was unknown. It was later discovered that someone had entered the Deansmore family home, rifling through drawers and closets, but nothing appeared to be missing. It wasn't until June when the sheriff's deputy arrived at the Walker family home to serve Joseph with a delinquent dog tax warrant that the full horror of what had happened was realized. When the officers entered the house, they found Joseph lying face down on the living room floor, his legs spread wide as if he had been trying to crawl. Mary was found lying on her side in the kitchen with a shotgun wound to the back of the head. In the bedroom, the officers found the bodies of John and Joseph Jr., both kneeling next to each other with their hands behind their heads. John had been shot once in the back of the head, while Joseph had been shot twice. All 4 members of the Walker family were dead. No signs of a struggle. The house was neat and tidy, the windows locked from the inside. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing appeared to be stolen. Joseph's car was outside, so the killer or killers had not taken it. And although the shotgun used to kill Mary, John, and Joseph Jr. was found under the floor of the bedroom closet, there was no ammunition in the chamber and no shells in the magazine. As the news of the brutal murders spread across the country, the FBI became involved, even though the murders took place in Florida. The Bureau had been tracking the movements of a pair of criminals named John George and Thomas Silverstein. Known as the murderous duo, the pair had been robbing and killing their way across the South, having committed similar crimes in Louisiana and Mississippi. Despite the similarities between the 2 cases, the FBI was unable to tie George and Silverstein to the murders. There were a few theories as to who might have been responsible for the crime. Some thought it could have been a robbery gone wrong. However, the lack of a forced entry and the absence of stolen goods made this unlikely. Others thought it could have been a random act of violence perpetrated by a stranger. But then, again, the killer or killers showed a level of sophistication when cutting the wires to the house and entering the Deansmore home without breaking in. This led investigators to believe that the person or persons responsible knew the Walkers and had planned the crime in advance. A witness came forward claiming to have seen a couple driving Joseph's car after midnight on June, but they couldn't identify the driver. And while several people claimed to have seen a strange car in the neighborhood around the time of the murders, none of them were able to provide a positive identification. The last lead came from a neighbor who claimed to have heard gunshots at approximately 10:30 p.m. on June. When officers checked the time on the clock in the Walkers' home, it read 10:25 p.m. While they never caught up with whoever killed the Walkers, their crimes did not go unpunished. John George and Thomas Silverstein were eventually sentenced to death for their crimes in Louisiana and Mississippi and were executed in the electric chair in 1966. But as the years passed and the investigation into the Walker murders grew cold, the question remained, who killed them and why? Well, One theory is that the murders were part of a botched robbery. According to this theory, Joseph Walker was the target as he was known to keep money at home. This is supported by the fact that the only personal belongings removed from the house were the wallets and car keys from Joseph and Mary, which would indicate that the killer or killers were looking for something specific and knew where to find it. The fact that the weapons used in the crime were not stolen also points to this theory. Someone brought the weapon to the scene and planted it in the closet afterwards. Another possibility is that the motive for the murder was revenge. One theory is that the killings were retaliation for something that happened earlier that year when two men who had been drinking heavily entered the Walker's home and asked for money. Joseph Walker told them that he didn't have any spare change and the two men left. They may have come back later that night to teach Joseph a lesson and ended up killing the entire family. Or perhaps the Walker family was caught up in the crossfire of a gang war. But there's no evidence to support this. And then there's the crazy theory that the killings were the work of a madman. This is based on the fact that the killings were so brutal, and there doesn't appear to be a logical motive for the crime. Whoever committed these murders hated the Walker family so much that they exterminated them, taking their time and showing a level of sadism that can only be described as demonic. The truth is that we may never know what really happened to the Walker family. The case remains officially unsolved, and the lack of physical evidence, witnesses, and suspects means that we're left with nothing but speculation and theories. What do you think happened to the Walkers? Was it a robbery gone wrong? Did George and Silverstein kill them? Or was it the work of a madman? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and joining our growing community. I'd also like to take a moment to say a special thank you to our supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you'd like to see your name on the screen and show the world your support for the channel, then join our membership program today. I'll see you next time.